How's it going? Good. It's good to see everybody here. We're very excited for Greek Week this week. We're very excited for the last lecture this evening. Tonight we have a member of the Baker community and the Baldwin City community for quite some time. Dr. Brown moved to Baldwin City in 1994, but has worked for Baker since 1990. He is the department head for the Quest program and teaches many different courses additionally. And tonight he is going to talk to us about things he learned while eating popcorn at the movie. So please give it up for Dr. Brown.
Thank you. It is really a great honor to be here. And I want to give a special shout out right off the bat to some of my friends who are here who are over the age of 35, because this really is quite late for them to be up. And so I appreciate being here. I am, to be quite honest, I am impressed that so many of you showed up to this event, because this is, I consider this to be a late night event. I know it's not for you guys, but it seems to be late for me. So thank you. You honor me with your presence. I hope to deliver something that you will enjoy tonight, and that perhaps you'll learn a little bit from as well. So let me say, first off, that you all don't realize what a great honor it is to ask somebody who works with ideas for a living to come and talk to you after hours, right? In one of the comments I made in the press release, I said, this is like giving a performer an encore. And I really feel like that is the case. So I want to say sincerely, thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this last lecture series. You all had a lot of choices of people who are much more worthy than I am to do this lecture. And so I appreciate very much from the bottom of my heart your willingness to choose to be here. So, I've got a script, right? But I'm probably not going to stick very close to it. But if there are moments when I have to rush back, because I'm not talking about Piaget tonight. I don't have all this stuff in my hip pocket, right? And so if I have to rush back to get the details right, you'll have to forgive me. But what I want to talk about first is this image that you have on the screen here. This is an image of sub-Saharan Africa. It's in Kenya. And so here's a behavior of all tooth and claw, right? Because you didn't think through the specifics of what this was going to be like. Now, why do I go into great detail about this? Keeping your word is something that is fundamental, and we should all do, right? But there are all kinds of issues associated with it. Variables change, right? And emotions get in the way. And we don't think about the future in very specific ways, which limits our ability to be able to keep our word. But this is one of those principles that if you listen to this movie carefully, you can hear this come out, right? If you don't want to lose a friend, return your books, right? Now, let me give you a breaker. If you don't return books to people that you borrow, I don't think you're a terrible person. I personally don't think you're a terrible person. In general, I don't think you're a terrible person. I just think you're a human, right? That's what we do. Everybody's borrowed a book, and everybody's forgotten to give it back. Or the person has moved away, or you moved away, and not being able to get the book back to us, right? It's just the way things are. All right. Okay. Video clip number 2. This video clip is a discussion between Karen Blixen, who we met in the first clip, and her love interest in this movie, Dennis Finch-Hatton. Okay? So they're going through the savannah, so there'll be a long, not a long drive, a bit of a drive, and music will play in the background. And then she asked him this interesting question about the safari work that he is starting to do, right? And so again, what I want you to do is listen to the dialogue, watch the scenery, because it's beautiful, and this movie won a lot of awards for cinematography, but listen to the dialogue, because that's what I want you to focus on. Okay? So, video clip 2, is this going to work?
times already.
In a week, a man from Belgium and his dogs. His letter said we'd like 3 of everything. It'll be an interesting trip. I'll be gone a month. Or an hour and a half.
Why are you doing this?
I don't know how to sew.
All right, perfect. Thanks. All right, so again, let's go through that dialogue just so that you guys can see it, because remember, I'm focusing on the dialogue when I'm talking in this movie. So what Dennis is talking about is he's assigned me to do safari work, and so he's setting up this business, and so talking about the clients. And I like the reference to the client, because that's the kind of request that I would make, right? Can you give me 3 of everything, and can we fit it into a weekend, because I need to get back to work. And then Karen asked the question, which I think is fundamental for a lot of us, of what it is that we should ask ourselves, is why are you doing this, right? And Dennis's response is a throwaway line. I don't know how to sew, right? Now, the thing I like about this response is not that Dennis is clearly rejecting the question that Karen is asking and ignoring her, right? Which he obviously is, right? But the unsaid part of this answer is, what else would I be doing? This is what I'm doing this because this is what I do, right? And if I was doing something else, I wouldn't be suited for it. And I think that's an important principle for us all to think about. And the principle, the way that I phrased it, is this: to find your passion. And I almost changed this at the last minute to follow your passion. But then I thought, then I got to go back and change all my PowerPoint slides. It was just way too much trouble. So I figured I'd just do it from the stage, right? So find your passion and then follow it, right? Here's what I would suggest. Rather than do what everybody else wants you to do, figure it out what you would like to do, and nobody would have to talk you into it, right? And then go do that, right? Now, the problem with that is that oftentimes the things that we're passionate about, our interests, change across our lifespans. And this is me being a developmental psychologist a little bit, right? So when you're a little kid, you're passionate about all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily translate really well to adult life when you have all kinds of other responsibilities, and you've got to go out and get a job and pay bills and all the kind of stuff that's associated with that, right? So, what I'm going to suggest is that a lot of your passions that you have maybe as children or as adolescents can actually transfer to stuff that you do in adult life. And in fact, when I talk to people, this is exactly the kind of stuff they say. Adults, when I talk to adults, this is exactly the kind of thing they say. Let me give you an example of this, and for me, I'll use me as an example. This is the kind of thing that I was passionate about when I was a kid. I like this picture of myself because I like the determination, right? I wasn't quite out yet in that play, right? There's a routine grounder to the shortstop. And I was going to be out from the moment I left the box. But look how hard I'm trying. And I don't know what this umpire back here in the background is doing. Maybe you're having a heart attack or this is my brother right here. Right? And so this picture has a lot of different parts of it that I like very much. But this is what I was passionate about as a kid, right? Now, I was never destined to make a dime playing baseball, right? But you couldn't tell it from the look on my face there. When I was a kid, I lived and breathed baseball, and that passion still exists, right? I think Thursday ought to be some kind of national holiday here in this country, because it's opening day, and that means spring starts again for me. But here's what I found, is that even though I was passionate about baseball, it had no prospect for being my future. I learned a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of experiences just from following this passion as a kid. And part of it was due to my parents, so they realized how passionate I was about it. So here are the kind of things that I learned. My parents would make sure that I had plenty of books about baseball and magazines about baseball, because they knew that I would, guess what, read them, right? Because I wanted to know more about baseball. So I was constantly reading about baseball when I was a little kid. In addition, I learned a whole lot about statistics because I wanted to figure out the stats for my favorite players. And so I would calculate all kinds of batting averages, and I would look at comparisons of their statistics and everything to see who was doing well and who wasn't doing well. I calculated my own statistics in my little league, right? And so I tried to figure out if I go 3 for 4 in the next game, what's my batting average going to be to try to figure out where I was. Right? So I was doing all these stats because I was crazy about baseball. I learned how to take notes using this really weird, specific note-taking strategy that baseball fans use, right? So some of you may have never seen a scorecard, what does this look like, but if you know how to read a scorecard, you can see that, here I'll back up so you all can see it, right here in the second inning for the Red Sox, who the Yankees were playing, right? So it's the Yankees versus the Red Sox, here's the Yankees lineup. During the second inning, the wheels came off for the Red Sox, and the Yankees scored 5 runs. And most of that was due to base on balls, right? They put men on. So here's a walk, here's a walk, here's a walk. Those 3 walks at the beginning of the inning cost them 5 runs on 4 hits and 2 men left on base. Those are not good numbers if you're a baseball fan for an inning. Not if you're the opposing team, right? Red Sox didn't like that. The Yankees were perfectly fine. So I can look at these notes and figure out everything that happened in that game. Now, I need to see the other half of it. We only see half of it here, right? But in fact, this person who did this, Steve Lombardi, said that this was the longest 9-inning game in Major League history. On, what's the date? August 18th, in 2007. So there I was in front of the TV, and I was taking all these notes, right? In addition, when I did go to games, I had to sit and watch baseball games for a long period of time to see some action happen, right? And I like this picture. I'm actually not in this picture. This is a picture that predates me, right? But I like this picture because look how focused everybody is, right? I like to tell people this was in a pre-television era where people had a lot of time on their hands. Everybody was focused, and the other thing I like about this is it's all men, as far as you can see, except for this woman here in the foreground. So I liked baseball, and I just wanted to learn about it. That was my passion, right? But I was learning all this stuff, and I didn't even know it. And it turned out that those skills that I was learning came in pretty handy when I arrived at this location, right? This is my alma mater, this is Wabash College. And oddly enough, even though it's just outside of Indianapolis, the campus looks this way year-round. It's odd. It's a weird clang. So when I got to Wabash, all those skills that I learned because I was crazy about baseball came in handy. Because my professors wanted me to read a lot of books. Right? And they wanted me to master mathematical skills so I could learn statistics and be able to do statistical analysis in my cycle. I sat in classes and took notes, just like I did in baseball games. And I spent a lot of time and developed a lot of patience waiting for faculty members to come to a point, right? To finally get to something that they wanted to say. So, all these skills that I didn't know I was learning came in handy because I followed what I was passionate about. And now they've translated into a career, right? Where I can do things like read books and think about ideas and take notes and be able to be in front of the class now and have them waiting for me to make a point. Right? So here's what I'm suggesting. Figure out what you're passionate about and follow it, right? This story is my story, but every grown adult you see in this room has their own story, because I hear them tell it, right? They think they're headed one way, and they end up someplace entirely different. And I would encourage you to do that for your life. You may be already doing it now, but you're going to be surprised, and I'll bet you're going to be pleasantly surprised at where you end up. Because if you follow your passion, it leads you in the right direction. All right. Here's the third and final clip. This is a clip that actually occurs before the last clip we saw, but it's a good clip to talk about last. And so during this movie, World War I is going on, and Dennis and Barclay Cole, who met earlier in the earlier clip, are fighting in the war. And Dennis and Karen pass each other by in a hotel lobby, and they have this 30-second conversation. It's very, very short, right? But the question that she asks them is why he is home, why he has come back from the war. And so if we can roll the third video clip.
I'd paid anything to see the faces. Hello.
Hello.
Would you join us for a drink?
I can't. How is it that you are home?
I brought Barclay back.
Has he been
A big
wounded?
fever. More than usual, but he'll be alright as long as the gin holds out.
Okay, another talkie scene. So let's I'm going to flash up the dialogue, and we'll be able to look at the script and what it is that they say. So here they are, the unexpected arrival of Dennis. And how is it you're home? I brought Barclay back, and she wanted to know if Barclay had been wounded in the war. And his response makes no sense to modern audiences at all. It is a line that when you hear it, you sort of go, what the heck is he talking about, right? Because he said that he has a fever, that it's more than usual, but the remedy for this is gin. Okay? Now, I want to be very clear here. I am not advocating the medicinal properties of gin, nor am I recommending that any of you imbibe this to make you feel better, right? That is not my goal here. Right? I think if I advocate that from this stage, I will be in big trouble with my bosses. My chief boss is out there, so I want to make sure that she hears this clearly. So, but this line makes no sense, right? As long as the gin hold out, he's going to be okay, right? So in order to understand this line, you've got to know a little bit about British history. And some of you may already know this story, but it is a favorite story for me to tell. So if you will just indulge me for a moment, I'm going to tell you the story of why it is that this line makes sense. Okay? So, back when the British were all excited about expanding their empire and waving this piece of cloth in various parts of the globe, right? They were traveling all over the place to try to take over countries and conquer different kinds of municipalities and make them part of the British Empire, right? These travels took them all over the place, from here up in Britain, here, right, around down to South Africa and all along the east coast of Africa, Southeastern Asia here. Places that they had never been before, but they figured that this was ripe for the taking, so they were there, right? What they didn't expect was to encounter this little girl here and her many sisters, right? Who, if she has the correct kinds of, it's caused by a virus, if she has the right virus, she will infect people that she bites with malaria. So, all these Brits were contracting malaria from going down to parts of the world that they probably should have never been in the first place, right? Because they weren't ready for it. Now, malaria is not pleasant. Okay? So here's some symptoms of malaria. I'm just going to read them off. High fever, profuse sweating, headache, nausea, and vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea, and of course, eventually death. Okay? Not a pleasant disease. Given all, other things, I'd rather be in Cleveland. Okay? So, the British conquerors are contracting malaria at an abnormally high rate. And so they need to figure out some way to treat malaria. And they come up with a substance called quinine. Here's the chemical structure of quinine, right? This means absolutely nothing to me at all, right? I just put this up here for the people that do work in Mulvane so they can sort of see it, right? What I do know is that this chemical, quinine, is dissolved in water and made into what we call tonic water now. Okay? So if you ever saw tonic water in grocery stores and thought, what the heck do people do with that? They take it so they don't get malaria. If they already have malaria, they treat themselves. So, what the problem is with quinine is it tastes really, really bad. It tastes a whole lot more like medicine than it does like a nice cup of tea in the afternoon. And so the British weren't real crazy about it, right? And so what they figured out was that if they put a shot of gin in with the tonic, it tasted a whole lot better, right? And all of a sudden, people just started drinking these things like crazy, right? Just for medicinal purposes, though, right? That was the only reason they were drinking, right? Now, here's the great creativity of the British, too. I love this, that they came up with a very creative name for this new drink that they come up with. They called it gin and tonic. Okay? And so that's the history of the gin and tonic. The reason it was first invented was for medicinal reasons. Okay? Now, I love telling that story. I think it's funny. I like to tell it, especially when people are drinking gin and tonics at bars, right? Because they have no idea what it is that I'm talking about. But I'll admit that it's a long way around to the point that I want to make off this little clip, right? And that point is, take your time, right? Regardless of how charmed your life is, all of us are going to have some pain. And when that happens, you got to take it. It's going to happen. You got to expect it. It's a part of being an adult. And so you just have to be ready for some pain. And when it happens, right? Now I get that some of you, because when I was your guys' age, I was so like, no, my life is not going to have any pain at all. Everything's going to be peachy keen. I know there's some skepticism out there, right? So let me give you some advice if you don't want to have any pain in your life, if you never want to have to follow this principle and take your time. First thing I would say is don't ever get malaria. Okay? So avoid that disease because this comes in pretty handy if you do have malaria. But here's some more things that I would say you should avoid. You probably shouldn't have parents, right? Because they're going to get sick. And so avoid having parents if you don't want to have any pain, right? You probably don't want to have any spouses either, right? And so avoiding spouses is a good thing to avoid pain, or siblings rather, I'm sorry. There's a spouse coming up here. You guys are so like, he's gone off the rails. How many different targets does he have? Okay? So avoid siblings, right? For the same principles that you avoid parents, right? Here's a spouse, right? Avoid having a spouse, right? And you probably definitely want to avoid children, right? That's a nice picture. Okay? In general, here's what I would suggest. You might just want to avoid family totally. Right? Because there's going to be some pain associated with family at some point in time, right? But there's more than that, right? Don't have any friends, right? Because friends are not, that's a nice picture. So, it was when Ira and I were much younger, better looking. Okay? Don't have a career that you invest in, right? Because as positive as it is, there's going to be moments of frustration. There's going to be moments where you want to your hair. Don't have colleagues that you value. Okay? Yeah. This is a nice part of it. Don't have a community that you become a part of and so fond of that you call it a home, right? Because it will be frustrating as well. Right? Now, before I pause off of this one, I want to break for a moment and give a shout out to the guy that took this picture, Frank Perez. Right? This was a picture that I found that Frank took, and I asked him if I could use it, and he said, of course. He was very generous. But here's the kind of work that Frank Perez does when he doesn't have a trombone in his hand. He's a pretty talented photographer. And so this is downtown Baldwin. So if you think that downtown Baldwin is no great shakes, hang this picture on your wall and remind yourself what a nice community this is. On a really mundane level, you probably don't even want to root for a hometown team, right? So here's the current MVP and future international celebrity, right? Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's getting over fairly rapidly. Who said at the end of the season, I thought this was a very telling quote, after the devastating loss to get to the Super Bowl, where they lost to the Patriots, he said, "It hurts. It's supposed to hurt." And I think that's true of whatever it is that we care about, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's a career, whether that's co-workers, whether that's a community. They're going to hurt you eventually. Now, am I saying don't care about anything, just dismiss all those out of here? No, not at all, right? Embrace those for all you can. But when something happens, and it will, when something happens that's bad, take your time. Okay? You can work through it, because we always overestimate how terrible bad events can be. And my experience has been that you always recover. I'm done with clips, but the last thing I want to talk about, the way I want to close, is I want to challenge this whole idea of a last lecture. Because I don't feel like this is my last lecture, and I'm going to give you the reasons why. When I was going through the clips about me being in college, and I showed you the kinds of things that I learned from loving baseball, being passionate about baseball, and I put a picture up of a professor lecturing, you all might have thought that this was pretty self-serving because I chose somebody that looks almost exactly like me. This is, in fact, Randy Pausch giving his last lecture back in 2007 at the University of Virginia. A month before, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. 10 months later, he was dead. This is a story that is heroic and does not need any embellishment. And it is one that I do not plan on replicating. He was 47 when he died, which was the exact same age that I was then, which is one of those things that's a little bit jarring. This is a plaque that I have hung in various offices throughout the years. It's not hanging in my office currently because I'd sort of forgotten about it. But this is it. And I think I'm going to put it back up in my office here at Baker again, because this is a plaque that has two simple words on it. And Richard back there, who can speak Italian, can probably translate it for us, because it's ancora impari. And it is attributed to the great Renaissance thinker Michelangelo, who at the age of 87, when he was working on a little sketch that he was drawing, wrote this in the corner. And roughly translated, this says, "I am still learning." And Michelangelo wrote this at 87. Now, I'm about 2/3 of the way to 87, it turns out. Right? But I figure if Michelangelo can have this principle at that age, I'm not done yet either. Right? I'm not going to finish up until this guy is ready to finish. There's a video that I like to show at the beginning of every human development class. And it's a really great video because it has people from across the lifespan, little kids, and kids who are teenagers, and people in early adulthood, and people in late adulthood. And they all talk at various stages about their life and the kinds of experiences they have. And one of the things in this video that has always been very very powerful to me is one guy says, as he's sort of doing yoga, he says, "I want this to be put on my tombstone. He lived to the end." And I've always liked that sort of sentiment. Right? Live your whole life. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep learning. And so, sure, I've gone through a lot of stuff tonight. right? Keep your word. Find your passion. Follow your passion. Take your time when bad things happen, right? All principles that I think are important. But the principle that I want you all to carry the most from this talk is to keep moving, keep growing. Don't ever get to the point where you say, I'm different. I'm not learning anymore. I'm done. I sincerely hope that the last day I learn something is the last day I'm alive. And I hope that's the case for all of you as well. So, the last principle is live every day of your life. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming this evening. Thank you, Dr. Brown. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it very much. We will have another last lecture series in the fall. If you're ready for the rest of Greek Week, we have a couple more events in here, so get excited for that. Otherwise, get excited for the rest of your school week. It's going to be great. There is cookies and lemonade outside. Thank you all very much for coming. Have a good evening. Good night.